entering the anchor locker. We've now managed to strip all of the timber out of the inside of there, and it's exactly what it looks on the outside. So that's awful, we know, and that's all got to come out. But here's the good news. The back of this locker is a steel bulkhead, which is rock solid. We've been all over it and it's solid, it's not rusted through. So basically what we've got there is about 3 foot high of steel, 3 feet vertically, from just up there to down there, and about 3 foot back from the nose in both sides. So 2 3 foot by 3 foot panels, effectively. They're not square, they're on a funny angle, but 2 3 by 3 panels, and 1 2 3 4 5 6 short pieces of framework about that long, which are 38mm by 6mm. And in addition to all of that, as you can see, hello, we've now removed this whole bulkhead. Let me show you what we've got here. The bed, which did stop here on this side, was shorter on this side than the other. So we've removed all of this wall, and the original bed stops there. And you can even see that the locker for the bed went underneath the wall, which is a bit daft. So we're going to take off that skin fitting. We're going to get rid of those stainless fittings and put plastic ones on, because they're less maintenance, I think, unless we change our minds before then. The heads now will come to here.
We haven't actually lost.
No, we haven't lost any space at all.
We've actually gained a bit more floor space.
Sure, because what we're going to do is the skin fittings here. We've got a, oh look, you can see all the way down. We're going to cut that piece of steel out and weld a patch in there, because the hull underneath the skin fittings was a bit corroded, more than I'm happy with. So there's a patch there about the size of a sheet of paper that we need to cut out and replace. And then I'll put the skin fittings probably underneath this berth, so that they're more accessible. We're going to put the sink in the back corner there. And the shower tray will stay exactly where it was, exactly the size it was. The toilet itself will be there, where it was. And we'll have gained some floor space in the toilet and gained space in the Forepeak just by taking the sink from here and moving it to that back corner. What we will lose is the locker, that we're the overhead sort of locker for your toothbrush and what have you. But we'll put, yeah, we can put something up here, or there's plenty of other space where we can put a little locker to keep your toothbrush and your paracetamols and all of that stuff. So we've actually gained space in both the head and the Forepeak. I didn't think that was possible. I thought that's defying the laws of physics, to remove a wall, move a wall and gain space in both rooms. I'm sure in geometry at school they told us that that wasn't possible. But there you go. And the only bit that we found under the floor there is a patch about the size of an ashore, yeah, where the skin fittings were weeping seawater.
The stainless onto the...
Yeah, and also there was stainless, although there was a rubber seal between the stainless pipe and the mild steel. Of course, the bolts themselves are stainless. And they've caused corrosion there, but that's just a small patch, cut out and weld, easy job. And we did all of that without removing the door. You wouldn't believe the amount of comments that we had from people saying, take the door off. We will probably take the door off, but
will we?
Maybe. But there are 30 or 35. There's 30 or more screws down each side of the hinge. And I guarantee 29 of them will come out easily, and one will be an absolute swine, and then in the process of trying to get that one out and drill the head off, 37 down each side, there you go. Honestly, I guarantee 1 or 2 of those screws would be an absolute pig, and then the hinge would get bent and I'd never get the door back on properly.
It's a really nice hinge.
And it's a nice door.
There's nothing wrong with the door.
We can work around it, and if we can't work around it, I know, we'll take it off. But for the time being, I want to leave it on. Okay, so I'm back in the Forepeak. What I want to do today, as we saw from last week, we did the ultrasonic metal thickness testing. And, you know, the obvious thing from that was, it's great wherever you put the probe, but it doesn't tell you the thickness of anywhere that you don't put the probe. So, and your eyes are probably the best tool that you've got. We've been able to visualise all of the steel in the back of the anchor locker. And it looks like it comes about 3 feet back from the nose. But there's 1 or 2 places where the water's run down the stringer to the steel collision bulkhead at the front of the Forepeak. What I want to do today is remove the panelling from the walls so that I can inspect the back of this collision bulkhead and the sides of the boat above, around that area, to see if the corrosion has penetrated that collision bulkhead and come through further back. I don't think it has, but I want to find out, I want to know. And secondly, it'll mean that we can insulate properly with some appropriate modern insulation behind these panels when we go to put them back up. The jury is still out on the whole spray foam thing. On the one camp, we've got people saying to us, use closed cell spray adhesive foam. It's absolutely brilliant, it adheres to the metal, you'll never get any moisture behind it. And on the other side, we've got people saying, don't for goodness sake use that, because when you need to do repairs, it's an absolute nightmare to get off. So let us know what you think in the comments about that. I think I know what I want to do, but I'd be interested to hear your comments. And then the other thing I'd like to do today, if we've got time, is get the ceiling down. It's not delaminated. I need to get it down to repair around the hatch. There's going to be no welding to do there, but there's some metal cleanup. We might tongue and groove, or we might just use this as a template to make a new piece, or we might just re-veneer it, or we might cover it in vinyl. But either way, the wood is okay, it's just discoloured. So that's the agenda for today. One thing I don't like about this is the way that a lot of these fillets and braces and what have you have been left uncapped. A lot of the places in the boat, they have put wooden covering over the metal, but that is a direct transfer of cold air from the outside of the hull to the inside, and it's a massive form of source of condensation in the boat. So I want to try and eventually get all of these covered up when we do the rebuild. These teak panels are pinned, as you can see, and glued, I think, to the wooden framework behind. I'm going to try and get them all off in one piece, but I don't think it's likely. I think they're probably going to end up breaking. It's just the way it is. We've got to get behind them. We've got to insulate, we've got to inspect the steel, we've got to know what we've got. What we're looking at here is the pine framework behind the teak veneer, cork tiles, which are the only insulation in the boat. Yeah, I've cut myself again, I always do. And what I want to do is get this pine frame off, get this veneer off, so that we can see if the corrosion from the anchor locker has travelled back past this collision bulkhead, which is teak veneer, but it's steel on the other side. Let's see. Next stage is to get this framework out, isn't it? What we now know is that the panelling on the collision bulkhead goes up behind the ceiling, so the ceiling's got to come down for this panel to come down. Brilliant. So we've got this bit of the ceiling down, and the metalwork is in spectacular condition. It's literally like new. I mean, all of the stringers, all of the frames, the whole boat's like this, apart from that chain locker and the lazarette. It's just, I'm just absolutely thrilled. Just got to get the rest of this this bit of frame here at the front off, so I can take off the panel onto the collision bulkhead. And see what's what, but I'm not actually expecting it to be bad. But either way, we needed to do this because these old cork tiles are not going to be anything like good enough for the insulation. There's a little bit of mould there, as you can see, so that's all coming out, and I'll be replacing it with a modern equivalent, or not equivalent, something modern and better. We need to get these panels off around the window so we can repair around the window frames, and the panel goes in behind this shelf, so this shelf's got to come out. We've also got to take off obviously the ceiling so we can repair around the hatches. So basically what it boils down to is we're going to be stripping all of the timber out of Forepeak, above the line of the actual bed. The bed itself is solid and everything below it is solid, but we just want to be able to properly get to that steel, not have any worries about combustion when we're welding and doing repairs, and re-insulate in here properly, especially as we're going to be sleeping in here. The insulation is critical. Yeah, the insulation in here is critical.
Yes.
We have to get this wood off to properly inspect the back of the steel, particularly in that collision bulkhead. It's so critical. And
yeah, so I mean, we wouldn't be doing it if there wasn't an issue in the anchor locker.
No, but one thing that we will be doing, because they've made this lovely thick collision bulkhead with a watertight anchor locker.
Take your torch off.
Sorry, they've made this lovely thick collision bulkhead with a watertight locker with a drain that drains down into the bilge, so that if you had a big collision, any water that did get through there would get into the bilge pumps could cope.
Just very slowly.
It'd be very slowly, and that's great. But this hole isn't, it was only covered up with a piece of wood. So what I will probably do at some point, maybe part of this build, maybe not, at some point I will probably make a hatch in here that is watertight sealed metal. So we can actually lock that, and then
it's a proper collision bulkhead.
It's a proper collision bulkhead, yeah, and it can fill up with water, because if it filled up to here, it would just push the wood off.
Yeah.
Okay, so great news. The purpose of this exercise was to expose this steel bulkhead to see if the corrosion and rust from in the chain locker had come through this this wall here, through, between the collision bulkhead and the rest of the framework, and had started to affect metalwork the other side of this collision bulkhead. And it's absolutely fine. There isn't a speck of rust. I tell a lie, there is. Look at this. There is a speck of rust. I would be lying if I said there wasn't a speck of rust. Here, there is a speck of rust, and I mean it's less than the size of my fingernail. So let's just look right up in the top corner. There's the collision bulkhead. You can see all the glue where I've been peeling these cork tiles off, and that's just the glue from the cork tiles. Okay, so there's the top weld, looking all the way down, The stringer is in perfect condition, and then it changes to the black coal tar epoxy. And across the other side, it's exactly the same all the way up. And we know from the previous couple of weeks ago episode that the metalwork below that bed is absolutely fine on that side as well, because I already cleaned that out. That bulkhead, ow, sat on a nail. That bulkhead is absolutely fine. There's no rust all the way around it. The rust in the chain locker is completely isolated to the chain locker and has not come back past that collision bulkhead, either above or below the waterline at any point. Thrilled. So, moving on. Next job for today, I want to take these panels off around the windows, so that we can look at the metalwork around the windows, both sides if I can, if I've got time, and maybe even the ceiling down, to see what metalwork needs doing there. So unfortunately it's all about making things worse to make things better, and that might end up being the title of this episode. Say it's a shame to rip all this timber down, but at the end of the day, that's no good to anybody anymore, is it? That's ruined. So that's that. And it's lasted years. It's lasted 40 years. So it's done very, very well. And I'm even quite impressed with these cork tiles. From what I gather, it was quite a common trick not so long ago to use cork tiles with this kind of insulation, and there's certainly better modern solutions to that, but they've lasted well. And there's the odd tiny little speck here and there, but they've protected the metal, and done a grand job all these years. What we've got here around this window are vents from our water tanks, so that's good to know. We've got access to them. We've got access to the windows now, so we can repair all around them, although they only need the frames cleaning up really. They're not leaking. The woodwork around was rotten mostly because of condensation. There's this funny cable which comes forward, loops and then goes back. So goodness only knows what that was for. It also means that we can treat the rusty corrosion around the hatch frame, which hasn't gone through. It's just surface corrosion. And there's a few little scabs. Which just need touching up and treating, and there's a bit more there. There's one blister here, which we can see inside and out, which we've identified before, and another one here. But otherwise, if you look all the way along there, that weld is all good. There's blister number 1, blister number 2, and the rest of the weld on the coach roof is all good. Lovely, lovely, lovely. And the metalwork again is in spectacular condition. Oh, there's a little blister there as well. So there's just a handful of little tiny spots which we need to treat. What I'm going to do now before we go is just put back up all the frameworks, because although the cosmetic timber is unfortunately beyond repair, we can use it to template new pieces if we decide to use panels. We may just go down the tongue and groove route, who knows. That's a long way off yet. We've got all the metalwork to do first, but at least all the framework is there, and the framework is all in good condition. It's all solid and survived. It's pithy, so not pithy, sappy pine. It's done really pithy. No, sappy.
What does pithy mean?
Pithy. Pithy has various meanings, but never mind. But it's pine, so it's survived quite nicely. Yeah, the plywood panels that have come off are all trash, unfortunately, which is a shame, but it is what it is.
We're not going to be sleeping in here for a while.
No, we're not going to be sleeping in here for a while. Although, once we've done the bits of metalwork, we can then insulate this. We don't need the pine. You don't need the wood on to sleep in here once the insulation's in. Be fine. And finally, here's the Forepeak. All completely torn out now. Ceiling down, panels around the windows are down, the panel over the, oh, there's Pip. Hello Pip. Say hello to Pip. So the panel on the collision bulkhead is off, and the metalwork is brilliant. So we know that all we've got to repair is that chain locker, which is fantastic news. There is not a speck of rust this side of it. So that's the end of another day. We've got the framework back on the ceiling, the framework's back on the wall panels are all back on because they came off intact, so we might reuse them. They're perfectly reusable. The other pieces we've kept so that we can template from them. The wood that's just a bit kind of old and a bit stained and not good to use again, we can at least template from it, or go down the T&G route. There's all kinds of ways that we can do, but they're a long way off that. The next step is, there's a few little spots of rust that we've got to treat on the metalwork, but by and large there's nothing in the Forepeak to worry about. And then insulate it and panel it out. And in the meantime, we probably won't sleep in here because it's just bare metal at the minute, and with the condensation it'll just rain on us if we sleep in here. So
yeah, we've just put the cushions back in because we've got no room at home.
Yeah, we can't.
For more boat stuff.
Can't keep taking boat stuff home, unfortunately. House is full. So yeah, there you go. And we're finishing in the dark again, unlike last week where we actually finished in daylight.
Well,
it's almost daylight. It's sort of a bit of light outside. Anyway, that's it. Bye everybody. Shout bye bye, Jack.
Bye.
Bye.
Come and say bye bye, Jack.
Come and say goodbye.
Yes.
There's not been a lot of Jack in this episode, has there?
Been any.
Come on up.
It's just been you.
Yeah, it's pretty much just been me. So bye bye.
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 Bye everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye.